This episode is supported by MonsterJoysticks.com. Level up your Raspberry Pi with our all-in-one arcade kit using genuine Sanwa arcade parts. And OneClickPrint.com for your photos on canvas, acrylic, gifts and more. Local craftsmen and global delivery.
Hello Cave Dwellers, the Pioneer Laser Active, it's part 3 of our Trash to Treasure series. Mark, just take us through what we've done so far to get this as far as we have.
Well, we found a couple of faulty capacitors inside the machine and we repaired those, which got it up to a working state. Neil did a lovely little washer hack to get the Laserdiscs spinning.
That's right.
And then we went on and repaired the Sega pack.
Which pack here? It's this pack, the Sega pack, with over 80 capacitors. You generously said we replaced a couple of capacitors in there, but there was an awful lot in there. So we fixed the power board and the interface board, we recapped in there, and then over 80 capacitors in here to get the Sega pack working. And I'm pleased to say I've clocked up probably over 12 hours of play on this without any problems whatsoever. Wonderful. With the Sega CD and with the Laserdisc review, which you'll have seen on my channel by now. I Will, The Story of London. Terrible game.
It looked amazing. It looked amazing. And both of those main actors sunk without a trace.
They did. So I'm really pleased with what we've done on this. Now, we've got it all to do again with this, because this is the PC Engine pack.
It is.
Just like the Sega pack, it lets us play, it opens up a complete library of another system, in this case the PC Engine, or the TurboGrafx as it was known in the US.
TurboGrafx 16.
What lurks inside?
Well, capacitors. There's about 42 surface mount capacitors in this one, and in the usual English way of underplaying everything, we're going to say that's a couple of capacitors. Again, they're very, very prone to leaking, so we're going to take them all out. There are some symptoms with this one, actually, aren't there?
There are. This one belongs to Gary, who's a viewer of the channel and a patron, and he says that the audio is messed up with this. Everything else works fine, but very, very quiet audio, if anything at all.
Okay. And that's actually a symptom that you'd get in a PC engine, mainly the handheld PC engines. What you'd find is the screen would become dim and the audio would become either dim or non-existent. And that is a symptom of a leaky or faulty capacitor usually. So, fingers crossed.
So we'll recap this pack. You've seen an awful lot of recapping in the last 2 episodes, so we won't dwell on it too much. But there is a slightly different technique that Mark is going to share with us using solder paste.
Yeah, we're going to try some solder paste. Now, the board might be responsive to it, or it might not, but we'll see, and we'll all see together.
So we'll show you the technique, and then we'll cut away to, I'm going to replace the belts, the drive belts on the main unit itself, to see if we can do away with those rubber washers which we put in place as a workaround, or if they need to stay in there permanently. So, lots to do today, Mark.
Indeed.
Let's get stuck in.
Let's get to it.
Here then is our PC Engine pack, or should I say Gary's PC Engine pack. It's a single board, unlike the Sega pack which had a main and daughter board inside, and it hasn't been worked on before. You may notice what looks like a brown bodge wire on the board, and I can assure you that is factory fitted. While the Sega pack was an exercise of squeezing a larger console into a smaller unit, the PC Engine pack is actually larger than the PC Engine itself. It's about double the size, so it's easier to work on than the original, which is nice. Everything we've touched so far on the Laser Active has had leaking capacitors. The PC Engine pack is no different. The most obvious signs of leakage you can see here as I turn the board into the light, and we'll definitely need to give that a good clean up. A friendlier sight though is the Hudson Bee on the underside of the board. I do like that little mascot. Our job today then is to work on removing around 40 capacitors, and as it happened they were fairly easy to remove with some flux and a hot air gun. We won't dwell on the technique too much as it was shown in detail on part 2, so do check out that episode if you want to know more. Suffice to say though, Mark thoroughly enjoys visiting me and being put to work. I do keep him topped up on coffee. With the caps removed, you can see more signs of leakage on the pads. Those little brown puddles under the caps were a sure sign that these, just like the others we've come across on the system, were failing. So I set about neutralising the leakage, which is alkaline in nature, by using an acidic white wine vinegar. When cleaning up, you may think it's not working as well as you'd hoped, but give it a few minutes for the vinegar to go to work. Wipe off the excess, and then you'll find when you clean the board with the isopropyl alcohol, it all lifts nicely, leaving you with a really nice clean board and hopefully no corrosion underneath. Our caps then are removed, the board is clean, and we're ready to fit new ones, which Mark will start doing now. And while he does that, let's revisit the problem we had with the drive mechanism in part 1 of the series. The addition of these rubber washers was a workaround. Originally, Laserdiscs wouldn't spin up, although CDs would, and by adding them in part 1, we got it all working. Cave Dweller Arjan had been watching that episode and he had some spare rubber belts, which he kindly sent us to try, so thank you Arjan. The first belt opens and closes the tray here, and that works, but we'll replace it anyway as a preventative measure. The second belt you can see moves the laser assembly around, and it has a fairly wide range of movement to cover the surface area of those big 12-inch laser discs. It's an easy belt to remove and no special tools are required, you can just unhook it and pull it off. The condition of these rubber belts isn't terrible, I've certainly seen a lot worse. It is starting to feel a little bit dry, losing its elasticity, and there are minor hairline cracks starting to open on the surface. It's hard to see on the camera here, but the new belt does feel a lot more taut when stretching it out, and perhaps that's enough to make the difference. And if not, well, at least we've replaced them before they perish, so let's pop them in. That's the first one in, and as we can see it's working fine. And now onto the drive tray belt, being careful to ensure that there aren't any twists in the belt when we fitted it. And our tray is working too. So I'll put this all back together without the rubber washers in place, and we'll see if our new, tighter belts make a difference when we test the unit later. But first, back to Mark and his new capacitors. No, Mark hasn't taken to giving himself a lethal injection, although I wouldn't blame him. This is solder paste he's putting on the pads. Solder paste is a powder metal solder suspended in flux, as opposed to regular solder which has flux in the core. The flux acts as an adhesive to temporarily hold the component until the solder has melted and fused with the part and the pad. Typically it's used when manufacturing PCBs where it's jet printed onto the pads, and then the components are rapidly placed on it by machine before the board is baked in an oven. We're using a paste which should turn molten and fuse at around 170 degrees C. That's not the same for all pastes. Check the specification of your paste if you try it. The theory then is that we can quickly and easily place and fit replacement SMD caps using hot air or an iron at a temperature which is much lower and therefore unlikely to damage the part. Faster, easier and less risky. That's the theory. Mark, what was your experience and did the theory work in practice?
When replacing SMD components, you have to have a degree of flexibility in the way that you work. Overall, using the solder paste was okay. There were a couple of places where the solder paste wouldn't take, but we were able to reinforce that with the technique of using a little bit of traditional solder on the iron and on the lead of the component. Overall, using solder paste was okay on this board, but I can't help thinking it would have been easier if we had a board preheater, perhaps around 150 degrees, then we would have been able to use a small amount of hot air to immediately place the SMD caps with the least amount of thermal stress on the board. But that's a technique that we can try in a future video.
And as it happens, a board heater is something that Mark's recently acquired, so I'm looking forward to him covering that on his channel, and maybe we'll get one for the cave. I also tried out the solder paste, and I have to say, while it worked for me, it didn't save a great deal of time, if any. For comparison, I reverted to a fine chisel tip on the iron and my normal solder, and it was just as quick for me really. A massive shortcut in soldering SMD components, this is not, but as Mark said, that might all change with a board heater, and I'd be interested to know your experiences with solder paste in the comments section. If you tried it, let me know what works for you. With all the caps replaced then I let Mark go. you could say I released him from captivity. Test 1 was our new belt, and we can see now that even without the rubber washers, our Laserdisc is spinning. It seems to have worked. It also works fine with CDs. In this case it's a Sega Mega CD game, so it's a win for our new drive belts and no more rubber washers are needed. But how about the PC Engine pack? Have we made some progress on that? With the pack installed and our Pioneer branded joypad, you don't want to lose those are worth a fair bit of money, we're ready for testing. The pack should allow us to play PC Engine HuCards, Turbo CDs, Super CDs and Laserdisc based LD-ROM 2 games. It's basically the same as a Turbo Duo add-on for the PC Engine, but with added Laserdisc games. Testing begins with a HuCard and first impressions are positive. It works, so we haven't broken the pack in the process, but the issue before, according to Gary, was that audio wasn't working. So let's have a listen and see if that's fixed. Well, clearly I don't know how to play this game, but the audio is loud and clear. Gary will be pleased. So as it's working, what else can we do with the PC Engine pack? Well, it's idiot proof, which is a bonus. I tried to take the HuCard out here without first turning it off, and you can just see a grey tab which prevents us from taking the card out until the system is powered off. Ordinarily, if you had the PC Engine and CD-ROM unit, you'd need to put this in. It's the Super System card. You slot it in and then you load up your CD-based game. It looks just like any other HuCard, but with the laser active, it's all built right in. The system screen here, when we turn it on, shows all of the formats supported. Let's give a CD a go then. I burned a copy of Double Dragon 2 to a blank CD and popped it in. Well, it's unlike any version of Double Dragon 2 I've played before. I kind of liked the original arcade sprite, but listen to that CD music. It's so very 90s. I don't have any PC Engine Laserdiscs from the library of 8 titles available. If I ever get some, I'll be sure to share them with you, but I've got no reason not to think that they'll work, given our Sega Laserdiscs work just fine with the Sega pack. So I think, on the whole, today has been a resounding success.
And so, from a broken Laserdisc player which was little more use than a doorstop, to an early 90s gaming super system, a multi-format super system no less. That's what this has become, and it's all been thanks to, well, a lot of hard work with the assistance of Mark, and being able to break it down into episodes has made it a lot more tolerable to get through all of this recapping. So where do we go next with it? Well, despite your requests, I'm not about to buy the karaoke pack and sing to you. Just not my style, sorry guys. But there are 2 more boards in here that need recapping. I'm not going to make another episode on recapping. You get the message. You know how bad the caps are in this thing. You know the dangers. You've seen our different approaches to replacing them and some ideas on future approaches. So I hope that's helped you in your own methods and repairing your own devices. It's not the last you'll see of it. There will certainly be live streams. And if I get hold of any of those PC Engine Laserdiscs, I'm certainly happy to demonstrate those to you. So this will be around in the cave for a long time. I'm not getting rid of it after all of that effort. Speaking of effort, I'd like to say a very special thank you to Mark. Do check his channel out. Mark fixes stuff. We couldn't have done it without you, Mark. And he's got a great channel covering many similar topics to me with his own style and approach. So it's well worth following him. Arjan, thank you for sending the rubber belts that you did, the drive belts. They're really helpful and that helped us get around another problem. And of course, to you, the cave dwellers, thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I look forward to the next series with you.
If you enjoy my content and would like to toss a coin into the hat to support the cave, then check out patreon.com/retromancave and join the official cave dwellers you can see on the screen now. Thank you for your support.